interest at the time. Over the years, Linkin Park continued to release their albums. I know Meteora was next, and I forget the other ones that came after that. And I bought, I think, the three or four albums in, and then about that time it was shifting and becoming a little bit more pop oriented, pop rock oriented. And for me, I started to lose interest when I don't think I'll buy any more albums by them. I still like them. I had opportunities to go see them in concert after that, whether they were part of a stadium tour or they were headlining. Yeah, sure. I know I was going to hear music that I would like. I respect them for what they did and what they were the artist. I'm At first when they started to change, I wasn't a big fan of it, but later on in life, I went, all right, I can now get it. The youth in me was angry and, why aren't you playing what I like, assholes? But I respect it now. It was similar when Disturbed released Believe, their second album. It was so different from the first album. I was irritated, and they had one song on there that sounded like the first album. But then after that, same thing. I learned to not be so critical of bands and artists because they're creating what they want to create. And it's up to me whether I enjoy it or I don't. And I don't have to buy it. They want me to, but I don't have to. And that's my right.
Well, I think that's something like people got to remember is that these are creative people and this is their creative outlet. And, when bands first come out or they haven't made it yet and they put that first album out, their life changes pretty drastically after that point. Mm-hmm. And it's also different when I remember I heard somebody say, your first album, you get 20 years to write that one, but the next one you get about a year, and it really changes like how you're thinking about it because you're not going in there writing about how hard life is or how angry you are because at this point you might be fucking rich, so it changes the dynamic of the music. It almost has to. Sometimes you can retain a lot of it, but a lot of the times it changes. Sometimes it changes for the better.
Yeah. It all depends on the band and yeah, how successful you are. You could be putting albums out left and right, and you could be not doing well. Every band's different.
Now, did you ever get to see Linkin Park play live?
I did. Yes, the first time I saw them live was Summer Sanitarium 2 in Foxborough. They were there. It was Mudvayne.
Wow.
Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit.
Wow.
Metallica. And maybe another band. There was at least those four.
Well, yeah, we would have got along back then.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. And I had never seen Mudvayne live. I wasn't big into them, but I walked away after that going, that they're pretty cool. Limp Bizkit, everyone likes to make fun and shit on Limp Bizkit, but I mean, back in the day, they were there. I was jamming out to them playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Papa Roach and fucking A. That's what it was. And yeah, Fred Durst went, little, crazy-ish, if you want to say. And that's another band that I wasn't big into, but I listened to a few here and there. I enjoyed it. And same with Papa Roach. Papa Roach has gone a completely different angle. Power Man 5000 went a completely different angle. A lot of these bands do. A lot of them change. Rob Zombie was another one. I actually found Rob Zombie as Rob Zombie and then went back and listened to White Zombie. So I started part way, and that was Matrix, because they were playing Dragula.
Dracula, yeah.
And that was on the Matrix soundtrack. And then I went and got Hellbilly Deluxe and went, wait, he's got this other band, White Zombie? Oh, this must be new. Oh, no, wait, I'm an idiot. Let's go backwards in time.
Yeah, I don't care who knows it. I was a huge Limp Bizkit fan when I was younger. Up until the chocolate
starfish and hot dog flavored water.
That's kind of where I checked out.
Yep.
But the first album, $3 Bills Y'all, that was, I mean, at the time, it's hard to hear this now and think of it this way, but it was like groundbreaking. It was way different. It was completely different. So, there's a lot of bands from our day. I feel like people just hate them to hate them.
It's the popular thing is to shit on things that other people like just because.
I think especially when it comes to metal or hardcore, whatever you want to call it these days, it's part of the culture to shit on the past and be like, that's garbage. This is the best. This is way better. It's such a weird culture.
I mean, there is a lot of great new metal, and most of it comes from overseas. Volbeat is one of my favorite bands. I did get to see them live up in Hampton Beach Casino. Beautiful little venue right down on the ocean. Those guys are amazing, amazing show. I would see them any day I could.
I like their music. I actually like the dude's voice. They got a cool sound. They have a real cool sound.
Cool sound, incredible singer.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to back this back on up. Now, before you took that summer job, was it ever an interest of yours to try a radio job, or was this just a spur of the moment, like you just took it because it was available?
No, it was because it was available. My summer job was entertaining tourists when they would come to New Hampshire, and then that would close down. And during the winter, I had nothing going on, so started just during the middle of winter, just going into the radio station and just doing it because it was a job. It really wasn't until I got to college and then I got the other side of it, playing with the music. And that's where I really enjoyed it. And college radio was vastly different than I'll say professional broadcast radio, because in college there's not nearly as many rules. You're not a business. Obviously you can't play swears during a certain time. You have to play so many PSAs or underwritten educational grants or whatever it may be.
Is there a time frame that you're allowed to play different, like you're allowed to air different kinds of language?
On college radio, yes, because it's low power. For the bigger stations, I actually don't know. I've never looked into that. I just remember in college after 10 p.m. I think it was after 10 p.m. and up till 5 a.m. you could air songs with swears in it. And depending on the song, especially with classic rock, you may hear a swear because it's part of it, and the amount of shit you'll catch from playing an edited version of it, it far outweighs the risk of actually getting in trouble. And most likely you're not going to get in trouble because it's art, and it's a piece of history, I guess. I mean, I get complaints every now and then. Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. I've got a complaint because in that song they use the word faggot, and how it's used. It is actually used making fun of the person, of how stupid he is for using that word, that he doesn't understand what's happening. But they were upset because the word was used. We haven't changed the song. It's still playing the regular album version. But every once in a while you get somebody who complains that, I didn't like that word, or I don't like the topic of that song. And you weigh the pros and cons, of you want to play music that people know, but you also don't want to offend everybody.
Yeah.
Because then you can't stay in business.
I think the real crux of this is you cannot make everybody happy. Since I've come into podcasting now, I'm doing 2 shows, and maybe not so much on this one because it's music centric, but on the other one, I guess how I thought I was going to be is not exactly how everybody else wants me to be. You get a lot of complaints, but then you get a lot of praise, so you're stuck in this weird middle ground of like, what are you supposed to do?
It all depends on what you want to do and how successful you want your product to be. And I can use radio classic rock as an example. So a lot of radio stations, at least in my area, if they're classic rock, they will use a playlist of anywhere of 400 up to 1,000 songs. And depending on how the size of your library will determine how quickly they turn over, how often you hear the songs, how deep you can go. And the smaller library, obviously, the safer your songs are. You're not going that deep. You're not playing a lot of B-sides and deep cuts. If you're going up to 1,000 songs, you're probably playing more music that people don't know. You are hitting those B-sides, those deep cuts, those one-offs. And at least our approach is, you try to find a middle ground. You don't want to be too repetitive, because then that turns people off, because then they hear the same thing every day. You don't want to be so obscure, because then the average person doesn't want to hear that either. And even though there's people that all they want to hear is the hits and they only want that 400, and you have other people that don't want to hear just the hits, they want to hear Inagata Davida, because even though it's freaking 11 minutes, they still want to hear it every once in a while. You have to find the middle ground and whatever is going to work best for your product, which is usually somewhere in the middle. And that's where we go with our station, and play some stuff that some stations don't play, but we're also not going so obscure that people are going to turn us off. And with podcasting, that's similar in what do you want from your product, and do you want to do something that you love and you care and you're passionate about and you may not have many listeners, or do you want to do something that's more in tune of what the listeners want and change the format to fit that to a point? That's up for every podcaster or every creator, really, not just podcasting. Every creator has to deal with that.
Absolutely. Now, being that you work on, you said like a smaller platform, I guess. Do you get to pick what you're playing?
To a point, yes. My companies, as I've worked for them, have gotten smaller and smaller every time. My current company is just 2 radio stations, and I see my owner multiple times during the week. Prior to that, I would only see my owner, once a month or so. And then the company before that, I never met my owner. So being able to see my owner and talk with my owner and make decisions with my owner is awesome. Even though he and I may have different of opinions, I get the respect from him to have that conversation, which is awesome. Not everybody gets that. And so we will go over the plan for the radio stations, the music, the promotions, and we do, to a point, pick the music, but you don't pick hour by hour just on a whim, because you want to spread that out. You don't want Skinnerd to start off every day 10 a.m. when your midday guy jumps on air, that he always starts with Skinnerd. Even if it's a separate song or a different album, man, you're always starting with Skinnerd every day. I fucking hate Skinnerd, or I love Skinnerd, but man, every day I could set my watch to this. You don't want to do that. So you use a scheduling software. Typically, I know of one radio station that doesn't, but almost everyone else uses some sort of scheduling software, and it will help look at where artists play, where songs play, and it will move them into different segments and different parts of different days. So you minimize that repetition. You get a request from somebody for something that's not too obscure that you can play. Yeah, you make sure that the artist isn't coming up within an hour or so on either end. Someone says, "Oh, I want the Stones," any Stones song. You'll look and go, "All right, no, I just played Stones 20 minutes ago. I can't do that. Anything else I can get for you?" Or you look back, you look forward, and go, "Yeah, there's no Stones coming up for 2 hours. Sure, what do you need?" And as long as it's something not too obscure, you can toss it in. That I don't have a problem with. Not all companies are like that. Some companies are, this is what you play. You do not touch the log. You do not deviate from the log. But that's bigger market.
So you're at that point, you're literally just a voice. You're just, I guess, walking the day through and clicking it.
You're a talent, I guess. You're a voice.
A personality.
And personality. And some of the bigger companies utilize voice tracking and recording. And you may not be listening to somebody who's even in your market. You may be listening to someone who is in Milwaukee. You don't know. They're sending the information out. They're sending the audio back. But the average person has no idea, unless they have, a southern draw, and you're listening in northern Maine, going, "What the hell? What? This doesn't sound like they're from Portland. This makes no sense."
So when you have kind of, I guess, like a say in some of what's going on to the radio, how would you pick songs based on what?
There's a few ways to go about it. One is knowing your market and your listeners, what works well in New Hampshire does not work well in Jersey. And a couple companies ago,